Much of our experience of life is cause and effect. You do this, the cause, and this is the result, the effect. After someone dies, our need to comprehend the effect can sometimes pervert our understanding of the cause, often creating the need to blame. If we can blame someone for this, if it's someone's fault, well, that would give it a cause or a reason, rather than it being arbitrary. After a loss, many people have a need to find some reason for the seemingly irrational fate. As we saw before, many people feel guilty because they blame themselves that they didn't do enough to change the outcome. We saw how the root of guilt is often people's sense of helplessness and powerlessness. Something has happened that they were not able to prevent or to change. Anger, together with guilt and blame, are all desperate attempts to find some cause for the situation. For if someone or something caused this, well, they could also have prevented it. And that is what we're angry about. Why did someone do this or not do that to prevent this situation? It presumes, of course, that there's a reason for the illness or for the accident or for the death, and it also assumes that it could have been averted. You see, we would rather believe that this could have been controlled than accept that sometimes these things just happen. So anger, then, is usually a protest against something we are unable to control. There is nothing that can be done to change the situation. Oh, we would do anything to be able to change things, but when there is nothing that can be done and the outcome is inevitable, that can be the most frustrating experience of all.
I was angry. Yes, I was angry. I was angry with myself that I wasn't there when she died. Maybe I could have done something. I was angry with the doctor who did a physical just a month before and pronounced her 100% fit. Did he do his job or did he miss something? How I wished I could have done something to change the outcome. And I was frustrated that I couldn't.
You might think that I would say that, like guilt, which shares the common root of our inability to control the situation, anger is a negative and counterproductive emotion. But not so. Anger is not negative if it can be expressed appropriately and focused in the right direction. We have every right to protest. After all, we've been affected by something that is beyond human control. We have every right to feel angry. Your world has changed. You didn't want it, you don't like it, and worst of all, there's nothing you can do to change it. That's enough to make anyone angry.
We moved house 7 months after the fact. We had moved a number of times, and we had moving down to a fine art. I got the boxes, and I lifted all the stuff, and I cleaned up the new place, and she labeled everything and set everything else in place, except she wasn't here this time. So I told my 3 kids that they had to perform her role. So I got all the boxes, and I said, well, you take all the stuff out, and you label them, and we do all that we need to do. And of course, they didn't. I remember the day we had to move, I had someone from the church drive the truck, and I get up like 5 in the morning, and I look around and I realize, this ain't working. And I'm driving back and forth in my car, trying to make as many trips as I can. And at about the 4th trip, I just sat in the car, and I was so ticked off at her. I was so ticked off. I said, why are you leaving me with all this crap? And like, this is like 8 months down the road. So you don't do this anymore. You don't do that. And I have to be mom, and I have to be dad, and I have to be da 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 da. And I just started yipping and screaming. And of course, it didn't change anything, right? But I felt really, I was beyond, I was livid. The tears, like I was shaking. And then we moved house.
Anger can express itself in many ways. Sometimes it feels like a physical thing. Your muscles tense and you feel like yelling at someone or hitting out at something. Rage can be aimed at yourself or directed at other people who may have been involved, or even people who were not involved but somehow who became a convenient target or a scapegoat. Often anger is expressed towards God. Could God not have done something to prevent this? Is the question we often ask. Again, we have every right to be angry, but we must be careful not to vent that anger on people who really shouldn't have to bear the brunt of it. How many times have you heard people say that they're angry with the doctor or with the healthcare system or with the funeral director, the minister, or with a legal system which may not have meted out the punishment that we feel fits the crime? Now, sometimes that anger is deserved. Doctors aren't perfect, and sometimes professionals mess up, and they should be accountable for their actions. Sometimes that anger is deserved, and I'm sure you have your own stories of your frustrations in those areas. But some anger is less defensible. What often creates the problem is that our anger often gets misdirected. We channel our wrath onto the people who least deserve to be the recipients. Sometimes anger is expressed towards people who are unsympathetic or even unkind. Sometimes professionals don't seem to realize that your situation is the most important one they have to attend to today. Sadly, I have also seen people who get angry with their own family. And even if bridges aren't burned, they can be very seriously damaged. I know people who seem to be angry with everybody, and that's a sure sign that their anger has been misplaced. We need to ask ourselves, what am I really most angry about? I was angry that Carolyn had died. I was angry that the doctor might have missed something, but I think on reflection, I was really angry because I had been left. I had to go on without Carolyn. I had to look after myself and my boys without her. I had to do all the cooking and the household responsibilities that she had done so well in our partnership. Yeah, I was angry because I was stuck with it all. I didn't like it, and I couldn't change it. Someone once asked me if I was angry at Carolyn for dying on me. I suppose there's something to that, but I've come to see that she had no control over it either. I like to think that maybe she would have been disappointed not to see her children growing up and seeing them graduate and get married, and I'm sure she'd be sad not to be able to meet her grandchildren. Being able to talk through some of these issues can help us see that perhaps bad things happen in spite of, rather than because of, our efforts. Seeing that death and much of life itself may actually be outside of our direct control can free us to let go of the things that are unchangeable. There are many things in my world that I cannot control. And the older I get, the more I realize how long that list really is. Wisdom is learning how to accept that there are things I cannot control and to forgive myself for the fact that I am, after all, only human.